So today we cancel the Republican Party once again. It's canceled for this news, as reported by CNS News. It says the Republican National Committee announced its partnership with the Log Cabin Republicans at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort this weekend, creating its first Pride Coalition, which will invest and mobilize LGBTQ plus communities ahead of the 2022 midterm elections, according to Fox News. The Spirit of Lincoln Gala, held at the Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, was hosted by the Log Cabin Republicans, an organization representing LGBTQ conservatives and their allies, on Saturday night. As president, Trump referred to Mar-a-Lago as his winter White House. He and his wife, Melania Trump, were the guests of honor at Saturday's event. Now, I criticized the RNC Pride Coalition on Twitter, and it upset a number of people, many of them Republicans, including Richard Grenell, who's the acting director of national intelligence under Trump, and the first openly gay person to serve at a cabinet level position. He was at the event at Mar-a-Lago as well, and he received an award as well, I think. He took issue with my criticism, along with a number of other prominent Republicans, both gay and straight. Grenell accused me of, among other things, he said I was from the Stone Age for having a problem with the RNC Pride Coalition. I take great exception to that. I am not from the Stone Age. It would be more accurate to say that I'm from the Middle Ages. Though, frankly, I would prefer the Stone Age over the current age. I would take that in a heartbeat. Now, I have been repeatedly accused, not just because of this issue, but in general, of trying to exclude gay people from the conservative movement. That's not the case. What I want to exclude, what I say we must exclude if we want conservatism to mean anything at all, is gay pride. I do not think that there should be an LGBT pride coalition in the Republican Party, and I'll explain why. And let me note at the beginning that if we were back in the ancient times of, not the Stone Ages or even the Middle Ages, but say 5 years ago, it would have been totally uncontroversial for me to suggest that gay pride doesn't belong in the conservative movement. But as we know, the Republican Party is on the same train as the Democrat Party, just a few cars behind, and as the whole locomotive speeds inexorably to the left, the Republican Party is never far behind. That's how a statement that would have been so self-evident as to be boring 5 years ago can suddenly be not only provocative, but downright offensive today. So here's the problem with gay pride and why it doesn't belong in the conservative movement. It's hard to know even where to begin. I mean, you often have that problem when trying to explain things that should be obvious. So I'll stick with 2 points here, starting with the most fundamental. Gay pride is an ideology. It's a philosophy. And as such, like any ideology or philosophy, it has a history. And we can trace that history. And when you trace the history of gay pride, which isn't hard to do because that history goes back only a few decades, you find that it was from the beginning, has always been, and is now an anti-family, anti-virtue, anti-Christian left-wing phenomenon. There's a reason why Harvey Milk, the child-raping pederast, is a gay pride hero. He may not be a hero of all gay people individually, but gay pride, again, is an ideology. And within that ideology, men like Harvey Milk are honored and celebrated. Gay pride parades are fully in accordance with the gay pride philosophy. And that is why they are hedonistic, self-indulgent, self-worshipping, hypersexualized spectacles of decadence and debauchery. It's not a coincidence or a matter of happenstance that gay pride parades and festivals take on this character. That's what gay pride, the ideology, is all about and has always been about. Why is that? Well, because gay pride revolves around, really it invented, we should say, sexual identity politics. According to gay pride ideology, according to sexual identity politics, the most important thing about a person, the number one defining trait, is their sexual proclivity. A person is encouraged to find their identity, to locate themselves within this proclivity. That is not conservative. If that is conservative, then conservatism is totally indistinguishable from leftism. At best, it becomes a different side of the same coin, though I think it really would be the same side of the same coin. Or a coin where the two sides are so similar that it would be really hard to try and play heads or tails with them. Again, I emphasize, everything I've said here would have been considered insane up until about 5 years ago. Insane only because it's so obvious that it shouldn't need to be said. A segment on a conservative talk show explaining why gay pride isn't conservative would have been like a segment on the Weather Channel explaining why the rain makes you wet. But this just shows you how thoroughly, how cataclysmically the ground has shifted beneath our feet. And many people on the right have been moved all the way to the left without even noticing that they moved at all. This is what happens when you allow yourself to passively float on the tide of culture. You look up one day and you notice that you've drifted far from where you started, though you weren't trying to go anywhere at all. Right-wing gay pride is, as a concept, very similar to right-wing feminism. And there are indeed conservatives who, for years, have been trying to develop a conservative feminism. Oftentimes, they say that they want to reclaim the spirit of feminism in its original form, in its pure and Edenic state. Back in the mythic first wave period, when feminist pioneers were fighting for the good, fighting the good fight and saying a lot of really conservative things like, quote, "The Bible and the church have been the greatest stumbling blocks in the way of women's emancipation." That was Elizabeth Stanton, godmother of feminism. Said that over 100 years ago in the first wave, identifying the Bible and church as the enemies in the first wave of feminism. In fact, all of feminism's godmothers said stuff like that about religion, the family, men, marriage. Feminism, as it turns out, was, at the time, still is, anti-family, anti-Christian, anti-virtue, anti-man from its very inception. There is no pure form of it to return to. It is rotten to its core, like gay pride. Feminism is one of the worst things to ever happen to the human race. It is one of the greatest evils in history. It's killed 60 million babies, and that's just the start. And yet some conservatives still think it's possible to be a conservative feminist, not realizing that it's not a corruption of feminism in its original form. It is its culmination. Today's feminism is the culmination of the original feminism. A culmination, not a corruption. The same can be said when you see drag queen story hours or men in bondage gear marching down the street in front of children. That's not a corruption of gay pride. It is gay pride. That's what the ideology of LGBT pride stands for. And speaking of LGBT, what about the T in that initialism? I asked Grinnell this and he didn't answer, but it's a good question. Are we including the T in this conservative pride? Are we proud of transgenderism now too? Are we embracing gender theory? Perhaps looking for a pure conservative form of gender theory? What's next? Conservative critical race theory? Conservative Marxism? Conservative communism? Where does it end? Maybe we can come up with our own conservative Satanism. Dems are the real Satan-phobes. That's where it ends, really. It ends in confusion, impotence, the death of anything resembling conservatism. Unless we come to our senses and start drawing clear lines. And until we do that, I must say, the Republican Party is canceled. And so is gay pride. Gay pride is canceled too, of course. Hey, listen, hit the subscribe button. Do it right now. I demand it. And I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.